Hello, everyone, and welcome to Morning Tea Live. I hope you guys are having a beautiful day. So, today has been a tender day because my grandpa has passed on to the other side. And I was really sitting with, do I do this episode? Do I do Morning Tea Live? Luna. Um, oh my God, this cat. Sorry, she is real active right now. And when I thought about the idea of canceling it, my whole body was like, no, why would you cancel it? Now, this is the first thing that I want to share about grief, which is the topic of today's episode, because that is what is most alive in my heart, is sometimes we think that grief is going to look the same for everything that we're grieving, right? Every person we grieve, every experience we are grieving, whatever loss that we're going through. And we think that there should be these same blanket rules, right? So like, my first thought was, okay, do I now cancel the day? Do I do this? And my whole body was like, no, it feels authentic to still show up today. Now, I've experienced, other losses where there's no way in hell I would have been able to show up to record an episode or for my clients, and I would have listened to my body on that. And so every experience is unique. It is one of a kind. And there are certain things that are also common among all different experiences of grief. So when I was thinking about, okay, how can I honor my grandpa? And how can I honor what I'm needing? I was like, I'm going to take the morning to just be with myself, to tend to my heart. I went to the ocean. I wrote a letter to my grandpa. I shed some tears. I just spoke to him. I, just allowed some of the grief to move through. I checked in with how I'm feeling. And then I was feeling really grounded, feeling really at peace, feeling really in acceptance. And again, I think there's this attachment to what grief looks like, where we feel like it should look a certain way. And so sometimes when it doesn't look that way, there's like guilt that comes up or questioning. And so I was really sitting with like, oh, should I be feeling guilty that I'm just gonna like have this normal day, right? I'm Voxering with my client. I'm showing up to do my typical Wednesday morning tea live. I'm gonna have a session later today. I may or may not go to dance later tonight. I probably will take a nap because the call was very early and I woke up very early and went to bed too late, so I'm exhausted. Um, but I was sitting with that and I was like, well, what would they, if, okay, if I actually felt guilty, right? You have to look at, okay, where is that guilt coming from? Because I think this is such a relatable part of grief where when a person passes on, we can often feel grief and just guilt around moving forward in life or having what feels like a normal day when things don't feel normal, right? And I think that's part of it is like not attaching on to what you think an experience should be, but allowing yourself to be radically honest about what is and not making what is mean anything, right? So instead of making it mean like, oh, I am genuinely feeling okay enough to lead my clients, to do my normal stuff today while still taking time to check in on my heart, my brain would go, oh, well, it's too soon. It's too soon to be talking about your grief. It's too soon to be, working again, right? It's too soon. And the thing is that sometimes it is too soon. Like when my mom passed away, I could not go to work. Are you kidding me? I was in bed for like over a week. Um, when my grandma passed away, I think I took the day and went to the beach. Uh, you know, I have been through so much loss in my life that each relationship, each experience, each process of grief looks different and also the same all at the same time. So, what I want to walk you through today are the 3 steps that I use when I am moving through grief myself, as well as when I'm guiding clients through grief. And these are the 3 steps that I think are more that common thread among all grief experiences. And there's always space for really honoring that each experience is going to be differently and everyone's going to experience grief differently. And so again, it's all about checking in with yourself, how your heart is feeling, what you're needing, giving yourself what you're needing. And what I was needing today was the morning to myself, space to check in with my heart, and to show up and share how I move through it, because that gives it purpose. That helps me feel like I can honor my grandpa in a really beautiful way by sharing this with you in case it helps other people that are grieving as well. I think the other thing is that oftentimes grief starts before the person actually passes. So for me with my grandpa, I've had a lot of grief already. Like I've had many conversations with him around, his passing, around, which again is unique because not everyone gets to talk to the person about them passing before they pass. But I have had that type of relationship with my grandpa where we would talk about, how do you feel about still being alive? And how do you feel about being close to, this last chapter of your life? How are you feeling about all of it? What are your wishes? What do you want me to know? Like we've had so many of those conversations, and I could feel intuitively that it was coming close to that time because I was starting to really, again, just grieve like the things that he won't be here for, like my wedding and future stuff. And so a lot of that emotion had already moved through. And so by the time it actually happened today, there were some tears, but for the most part, it was just this immense amount of relief and peace. Like, wow, he finally gets to be at peace. Because it's not easy being 93 years old. He was having, he's basically blind and deaf, and like, God, just not a way to live. And so I feel really grateful that he is not suffering, that he is reunited with my grandma and my mom. And I know that I will still be connecting with him. So this is dedicated to him. This is my way of honoring him. And I'm going to walk you through the 3 steps of how I move through grief and how I teach my clients to move through grief. And I hope that whoever needs to hear this, whether you are actively grieving, whether you are, still processing a loss, this can be applied to any grief, but particularly around death and loss and people passing on. So the first step is, so I'll go over the 3 steps and then break each one down. So the first step is tending to your heart. The second step is trusting the timing. And the third step is tuning into a new way of connection. So, well, I'll get to this example that I want to share, but the first step, tending to your heart. So when you experience a loss, again, it's going to look differently for each relationship, each person, each unique connection. Your heart is going to feel things, obviously, because we are human and we love hard. And so your heart might feel broken, you might feel in shock, you might feel fear, you might feel just deep sadness or pain, you might feel avoidance of wanting to run away from that sadness or pain. You might feel anger. You might feel resistance. You might feel lack of acceptance. You might feel shame. I definitely had a moment this morning where I was like, damn, I wish that I tried calling yesterday because I've been having a hard time reaching him because he can't hear his phone. And so we went from talking every day. So for those that know, I was very, very close to my grandparents, and I would talk to my grandma every single day. And then when my grandma passed, I started talking to my grandpa every day. And then the calls got like fewer and farther in between each call because he was having a hard time hearing the phone. I was having a hard time reaching him at his facility. And it had been a few days. And yesterday I had this moment in the kitchen where I was like, okay, time to try calling Poppy. And I must have gotten distracted or something. Now Luna is licking my arm. She must know I need all the love. Thank you, honey. And so it had been a few days. I was in my kitchen. I was like, okay, time to try and call him. And I must have gotten distracted because I didn't. And so the attachment part of us as humans attach on to, well, what if I did this? Or what if I did that? Or if only I could have had one last insert, right? Hug, phone call, whatever it was. And I'm laughing because the the ironic part of all this is that the last time I saw my grandpa was in April in New York. And I had reflected on that time of how that trip was really me running away from myself. I was going through a dark night of the soul. I was in a deep, deep stage of fear. And it was really this like trying to justify why I would go to New York. It was my dad's, surprise birthday party. I wanted to see my grandpa. I wanted to see all the, my family, all the things. But I knew that it wasn't fully in alignment to be going. And I went anyway, because my fear convinced me that that was the right decision. And when we make decisions from a place of trauma, we have to take ownership of that. We have to hold ourselves accountable to it. And one of two things will either happen. One, we will redirect, we'll realize, oh shit, this isn't actually in alignment, and I'm going to redirect myself and pivot and not do that thing. Or if we go through the thing that's coming from trauma, we have to trust that there's something that's meant to come out of that. So I was talking about this with my mentor and my mastermind ladies this morning of like, just laughing at how that whole trip to New York was from a place of trauma. And yet it allowed me to see my grandpa for the final time, because every time I go to New York, I would be like, I don't know if this is going to be the last time. I don't know if this is going to be the last time. And I'm scheduled to go back because I have a wedding in September. And then I'm going to New York after that. And so I was like, oh, wow, I wonder if I'll get to see him in September or if that will be the last time. And it was very similar with my grandma, where she passed 2 weeks before I was scheduled to see her. And these things, okay, so this brings us to step number 2, trust the timing. We can look at that and say, well, what the fuck, God? I was supposed to see him in just a month and a half, or, see my grandma in 2 weeks. And we have to trust the timing of why things unfold the way that they do. So one possibility is that when you think about the person who's actually in that position and what they want and what they also feel safe around in order to let go of this life, this human form, in order to transcend into the spirit world. Oftentimes our loved ones don't want us to necessarily be there watching all of that. And with all three, no, 5, 6, with all 6 major deaths I've experienced, like with loved ones, none of those happened when I was right there by their side. It was like I would be by their side and then I would leave, and then I was about to come back, and it would happen when I left, because oftentimes they feel safest and most comforted or most aligned, or whatever the reason is, to go when you're not like right there with them, because it's so much harder for them to let go if their loved ones are like grasping onto them. And so we have to trust the timing, that even if it doesn't make sense to us, there's a reason why our loved ones go when they are meant to go. Because again, maybe it would have been harder to be able to let go, knowing that, okay, well, I just have to hang on another 2 months to see her again. Or, once I see her, then it's going to be even harder. And so I just have to, honor when I'm ready to go. And that's what I kept telling my grandpa. I was like, trust in God's timing. You will know when you're meant to go. And until then, you just have to literally take it one step at a time and just breathe. And we actually had a lot of just beautiful connected conversations, more so than ever in my entire life, because he was in more of a vulnerable position. And I also was in a place where I've been through this enough times where I understand, like what comes up for that person towards that phase of life, and just witnessing it. and understanding like, you know, it can be so hard to make sense of these things. Like he would say things like, you know, I'm 93 and none of my friends are still alive. Why am I still here? And I said, I don't know, but you are here. And so let's just take advantage of the fact that we get to have this conversation right now, or that I get to visit you, or whatever it is. But it gets to a point where the person knows when their life has run its course. And, you know, for my grandpa, he was 93, so it makes a little bit more sense to the brain logically. When my mom passed, she was only 64, and so that didn't make sense to me logically. Or to think about the fact that I almost died at 4, that children who die at 4, that doesn't make sense logically, right? So it doesn't make sense to the human brain, but that's the whole point, is that it's not about a human conception of time. It's understanding that God and the universe, they don't work through the human concept of time. They work through perfect divine timing, where for whatever the soul lessons were for that lifetime, whenever those ran its course, whenever life was meant to complete, whatever the soul was meant to come here to learn, when that learning is done, or, you know, whenever it's meant to happen on their soul journey for whatever reason. Because I can think back and be like, well, I'm sure there's more that, you know, my mom could have learned or my grandma could have learned. Learning is never ending, but their individual souls knew that for whatever reason they were meant to go when they're meant to go. So none of this stuff is like logical, right? And so that's where we have to really surrender to this higher power of trusting, you know, some people are going to live until they're in their 90s or even 100, and some people are going to go earlier or sooner. And it's like, we don't always know why. Luna. And we just have to trust, because not trusting is resistance, and resistance is just an avoidance of pain. It's just an avoidance of pain. When you fully accept, oh, this person is gone, you then have to be with the pain of that. When you fully accept, like, oh my God, this is it, you then have to be with the fear of living the rest of your life without that person. It's terrifying. And so I remember, like, just kind of in the stages of grief, I had a very similar feeling when my mom passed, where it was like, I couldn't even feel the pain yet. I mean, I felt the pain, but it's like the pain to come was beyond what I could have even imagined. I just felt this immense amount of relief of like, oh my God, she's not suffering anymore. And it's such a symbol of representation of life, of suffering is 10 times worse than pain, which is why my whole mission, which is why my soul came here on earth, to teach you guys and to learn myself that we always must choose pain over suffering. And so that applies to while we're still alive, and how we choose to live our lives and where we're avoiding pain versus where we are attaching onto suffering. And so it's really easy to resist and want to just not accept it, because again, it's an avoidance of pain. And I promise you, even when the pain feels like it's going to kill you, which at times with grief it does, it's not going to kill you. It's actually going to transform you. It's going to show you that you can feel pain on such a deep level that you don't even know is possible. And when we feel pain in such a deep way, we also feel joy in an even deeper way. When we feel pain in a deep way, we're able to feel gratitude in a deep way. It just deepens our ability to be with all emotions. And there's nothing more powerful than that, because that is what we are here on earth to do, is to feel, to experience, to be. And so again, right now I'm in this relief stage. Now, will there be pain that comes up? I don't know. There was some sadness this morning. There was some tears. There was some just prayers and acceptance and just relief. Like, that is the primary thing. And that's such a huge part of trusting the timing, is being with the unknown. I have no idea how my grief will show up tomorrow, later today, 2 years from now, when I'm at my wedding and I don't have my mom there, my grandma there, my grandpa there. There's going to be some grief, right? Or just future things. the hardest part about grief is the permanence of it. It feels so permanent. It's like, okay, in this moment, I can accept that these people aren't here, but in the future, when I think about, oh my God, I mean, if I live, let's say to my 90s, I'm going to have more time without the person than with the person. And something I was talking about this morning with a family member is just like, there are different main people and characters in each cycle and chapter of life. And this is the art of non-attachment, is we can have connections with people without attaching onto them for safety. And that's why this whole work of healing your trauma is about feeling safe to be in the present moment, to stay connected to the present moment. Because if I think about 70 years without my mom, oh my God, I wouldn't even be able to talk right now, right? But when we just focus on the present moment of, I accept in this moment exactly what is, and I can trust that in that unknown period, I am safe to be with pain as it arises. That's why, again, it's not about attaching on to how you should feel or what grief should look like. It's being with the unknown of how it actually shows up for you and being honest around that. And so when I shared with my mastermind group that he passed, their response was, keep checking in and just letting us know what comes up. And that's what I have to do. And all you can do is take the present moment. Like, that's literally the only moment we have. But when our brains start going to future tripping of like, how am I going to survive without this person for my whole life? First of all, we are so fucking resilient. It's beyond belief how resilient we are as humans. And number two, well, actually, this leads into our third step, tuning into a new way of connection. So I had told my grandpa, I said, listen, we need to come up with some sign for when you go that I know, that you're going to be here. And we didn't quite get to that because I don't know if he fully got all of that, but immediately there were signs. So I'm sitting on this bench by the ocean this morning, and all of the benches I didn't even notice this when I sat on it, but I was feeling called to go to this bench. And all of the benches have little signs, like in honor of, Natalie or Elizabeth or whatever it was. And they all had different messages. The one to the left of me said, in honor of a good man, something like that. I didn't even look at the one I was sitting on until I got up and I turned around and it said, running with the angels. And I was like, how fitting is that, right? And then as I was driving out of the parking lot, I see a grandpa with his grandchild in a stroller with the grandma pushing the stroller, like right in front of me. I let them pass, and I even took a video, which is like so creepy. But I wanted to send it to my family. I was like, look, like, I'm literally sitting here and journaling to him, talking to him, just like letting him know it's okay. Like, it's okay that you left. It's okay. Like, we are still here. And I'm seeing running with the angels. I'm seeing this grandpa literally crossing right in front of me with his grandchild. I mean, you can't make it up. And so part of that acceptance is accepting that we are going to have new ways of communicating. So when I first had this medium session around my grandma after she passed, my grandma was not, okay, she was not into any of this stuff. She did not understand spirituality. My mom was the spiritual one. She was the one that really planted these seeds for me. But because of my trauma, it wasn't until I met my mentor where I was actually able to integrate this relationship with faith that I now have today. It's like I knew about it cognitively from my mom, but I didn't feel safe to actually embody it or allow it to shift how I would relate to the world. And so I would tell my grandma about these medium sessions, like me going to a medium or me, seeing signs for my mom. My mom's biggest sign to me is the pine cone. There has been a pine cone in my driveway parking spot, every single day that has not moved. There's no other pine cones in any other parking spot. And we are near trees. Like, there's pine cones that fall down. I looked at all the other parking spots, no other pine cones. And every single day, no matter how windy it got, no matter if it rained, no matter if I thought I rolled over it with the tires, the pine cone still remained. It's the same pine cone, and then there's another one in the middle as I'm turning into the spot. Those two ones have always been there. And so I would tell my grandma about these things, like, mom's communicating to me through the pine cones. And she would be like, okay, like, are you sure? Like, she didn't fully buy into it. And I said, Grandma, you just wait until you go, and we're going to be talking about this. And she was like, okay. And so the first medium session that I did after my grandma passed, and the medium was like, she wants me to tell you that when she passed, it was like nothing changed. Like, she left her body, but then she was still there. And I was like, told you, Grandma, like, you're still here. And she was like, yeah, she now gets it. Like, she gets what you were saying. And I was like, I feel very validated. And that is a new way of forming a connection. Now, part of the acceptance is understanding that no amount of pine cones is going to take place of being able to hear my mom's voice, hear my grandpa's voice, hear my grandma's voice. No amount of signs is going to feel as good as the real deal, right? Like, I would be sugarcoating it and bullshitting you guys if I was like, yeah, it's all fine because you can see a butterfly. It's not the same. And it sucks, right? I would choose to hear my mom's voice or my grandpa's voice any day over seeing a butterfly. However, part of the acceptance and part of being with the pain of grief is understanding that by resisting what is, you're only going to suffer. And so, as much as you can show yourself that you are safe to be with the pain, you then at least allow a new way of connection to open up. And a big part of that is communicating to your loved ones, like, I am ready for you to tell me a sign, because oftentimes our loved ones in spirit don't want to scare us, right? Like, sometimes they'll use lights, and so the lights will flicker and it'll like creep us out and be like, are they haunting us? And so it's consensual. They need our consent. And so today, a big part of my process of honoring my grandpa was just telling him, like, I am ready. Like, let me know that you have made it to the other side. Like, let me know that you're still here with me. Let me know that, you are at peace. Just communicate with me. I am open to that. I want that. And that was literally when I turned around and it said running with angels. And I was like, okay, he's with my grandma. He's okay. He's at peace. And that brought such comfort. And so again, it's not gaslighting yourself to say, well, everything's fine because I have, the sign in front of me. But it also feels just more like a more connected, open-hearted way of relating to grief and death, rather than just being like, there's no signs and everything sucks now and I'm going to live a miserable life. Like, trust me, guys, there have been times, especially after my mom's passing, where I couldn't even fathom feeling happy again. Or no, I couldn't even fathom survive, like, living, let alone thriving. Like, I couldn't even fathom surviving, let alone thriving. That's what I meant to say. And not only am I surviving, I am thriving. And so again, there can be all these complex feelings of like, but is it okay to thrive without this person here? And you have to think about, well, what would they want? As someone who loves you so fucking deeply, what would this loved one want? Would they want you to literally give up all your hopes and dreams and stay in bed and watch Netflix and be depressed for the rest of your life? No, that's actually such a dishonor to their life, because if you think about it, we are an extension of their lives. There was a movie, I think it's called Life as We, no, not Life as We Know It. Life Itself. I forget. There was some movie and it was talking about this mom who was passing, and she told her kids, like, you are an extension, like, live for what I didn't get to live. And of course, in the spirit world, from what I understand, they live in a even more expansive way because you're just in spirit all around. But for this specific lifetime, live in a way that's honoring you, but also an extension of them. So my mom always wanted to move to California and she never got to. And so now I'm living in California. My grandpa wanted to, he would always joke, like, I'm just going to move to California and you're going to take care of me. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to like make enough money so that I can have this, big house and have you live in it and I'll take care of you. And I didn't make enough money to do that yet, but I will make enough money where I can have a house with rooms where if I do need to take care of someone or if I do want to have family visit, that I do have the space for that. Right. So it's looking at how can I use this as an extension of all of the things that this person didn't get to do because they just lived in a different time, right? And we're living in a whole different time, and our future generations will live in a different time and honor our memories. And it's all just a reminder of like what actually matters. Like what actually matters, and looking at, are your desires actual desires, or is it just coming from ego and avoidance of the present moment? I had a client session yesterday where the client was like, talking about how when she's just in flow state, and I was, rewarding her, but I was reinforcing that. I was like, how beautiful that you're just in flow state and listening to your intuition. And she was like, yeah, but then I always think about like, well, should I be working more towards my goals? And I'm like, okay, well, let's really break that down. What is the point of your goal? Okay, your point of the goal is to have time freedom and money freedom. Okay, why do you want time freedom? Why do you want money freedom? Oh, so I can do whatever I want all day. Okay, what are you doing today? Oh, I'm doing whatever I want today. Boom. You are missing out in the present moment on what you actually want and not even realizing that you have what you want. And so desires can expand on what you want, but they should never prevent you from experiencing what you already have in the present moment, because that's not actually a desire. Desire comes from overflow. Desire comes from, I am so fucking content in this present moment that anything extra would be overflow. It would be just an expansion of what already is. And so we have to be safe to be in the present moment. We have to use the present moment as an extension of the lives that have been lost. And part of feeling safe to do that is feeling safe to be with change, feeling safe to be with the unknown, not attaching on to everything of like, now my life is going to be awful because I don't have this person. It's like, no, my life is going to be painful without this person, and I'm safe to be with the pain. I'm safe to be with the grief when it comes up. Grief is the epitome of the unknown. We don't know when it's going to show up. We don't know how it's going to feel. We don't know how it's going to affect us. And all we can do is be in the present moment and allow your unique process. I had some fear coming onto this live being like, oh my God, are people going to judge me that my grandpa just passed this morning and I'm already talking about it? Like, is my family going to be okay with it? Like there was all this fear around it because I obviously want to be so sensitive because grief is a sensitive thing. And then I came back to what feels true for me, what feels authentic for me, what feels like it is in alignment. And me canceling this and like forcing myself to be depressed all day doesn't actually feel like I'm honoring myself or my grandpa. And it doesn't feel true because I don't feel depressed. I feel relieved. I feel grounded. I feel at peace. I feel grateful. I feel an acceptance. I feel sadness around missing him and not being able to talk to him every day. And all of those things get to coexist. I had clients be like, do you want to cancel today? I'm like, I promise you, I've been through grief enough times where if I'm not okay to serve my clients, I promise you I would never do that to you because you guys are paying good money for my full attention. I would say, this is not an integrity to be working today. I would take the day off, and I've done that. But to do that when it's not actually an integrity, just because I think I should be feeling a certain way or that my grief should look a certain way, that's not actually honoring what grief is. Grief is a deep presence in the present moment of tending to your heart, trusting God, the universe, surrendering, accepting, trusting the timing, and then opening yourself up to a new connection. And the reason why I feel so at peace is because my grandpa is always here. He's just not physically here anymore. And so even though that can feel sad and it can bring up pain, it's also just allowing the relationship to shift, which is what we have to do as humans anyway. Relationships shift. The harder part about grief in comparison to human to human relationship shifting is that there's a permanence around our souls are eternal permanently forever. And so there's a permanence of that, which can also help alleviate some of the pressure as humans, that we feel of like timing and wanting to get in everything, but more so like, how do you want to feel while you're here? Because at the end of the day, timing doesn't even exist. Everything is permanent, meaning our souls are eternal and death can feel permanent, but that's just for this specific lifetime. But nothing is actually permanent. Everything is actually ever changing. So again, we have the dialect, the two sides of the same coin of we have permanence and we have non-attachment. And those things can feel conflicting, but it's actually not. They go hand in hand. And so it's about opening yourself up to, how do I want to feel and communicate with this connection with this person? And that can look like writing to them. It can look like speaking to them. It can look like asking them for a sign. It can look like, going to a medium session like I like to do and talking to them, because it literally confirms that they're there. Like, guys, I have had medium sessions where it hasn't even been on Zoom. It's just been over the phone. And she would be like, your mom's pointing out your bracelet on your left hand. And I would be like, she can't even see me. How does she even know I have a bracelet? Like, stuff that you can't make up. And so any, naysayers that are like, I don't know if I believe in this stuff, you just can't make it up. Like, she literally described, I will never forget this. It was a phone session. She was like, the bracelet, which this bracelet has significant meaning because my grandma gave it to me and we had matching ones. And then she was like, your mom loves the light on the left, the window. And in my old apartment, I had this big window and it was filled with this natural sunlight. And it was just like, and then she would point out this picture that I have on my right, and she'd be like, she loves that picture of you guys. And I would turn to the right and it would be the picture. Like, that was a special picture for both of us. And I was like, she's literally here. Like, and so that can feel a little scary because you can't see them, but this is the ultimate faith. This is ultimate acceptance. This is ultimate example and power of not needing to see to believe. And that applies to our human experience of everything you're calling in. Do you need to see it to believe that it's possible, or can you fully believe that God is here with you, that your angels are here with you, that that your desires are on their way without needing to see the proof? It's like in that movie, I'm going to blank on the name now. Hold on. A Walk to Remember. When at the end and she passes away and he says, it's like the wind. You can't see it, but you can feel it. It's like that is the biggest representation of life and all the things that we can't see, but we choose to believe anyway. That is faith. That is faith. And so grief asks us to be with faith. Grief asks us to develop a deeper relationship with faith. I didn't have a relationship with faith before doing this work. I did to some extent, but again, my trauma was too in the way to really use it and feel it. My mom always would reference like, I can, feel your grandmother's energy, or her grandmother. I can feel her spirit. Like, she was able to connect in a certain way. I was able to connect to a certain extent, but it wasn't until this work and processing my trauma that I actually felt safe to believe in something I couldn't see, because my control was too strong. It's like I needed to see it all to believe it. A Walk to Remember, love that movie. Me too. Oh God, that movie, every time it got me, because again, she had leukemia. I've had leukemia. It's like just these moments of remembering that like life is a gift, even when you don't feel like it's a gift. Like, I'm going to be fully honest with you guys. There was a moment that I had this morning, and I'm just sharing my real raw process to normalize what comes up during grief. There was a moment of jealousy, not jealousy that he died, because I do want to live. I'm here and I am grateful to live. but jealousy that he gets to reunite with the two people that I miss the most, my grandma and my mom. And so there was this moment of jealousy of like, he gets to be with them and he doesn't have to deal with all this human shit anymore. And then I was like, oh my God, Rachel, what are you saying? Like, I definitely had a moment where I was like, okay, you're going to a dark place, but that's okay. It doesn't have to mean anything. Like, I'm not suicidal. I'm here to live. I accept that I am meant to be here on earth. And life can be fucking hard sometimes. And so, again, like, it's just normalizing these things, because when we don't normalize them, we think that something's wrong when we're like thinking about death, or when we're thinking about, damn, he got to go. And it's like, it doesn't have to be so big of like, oh my God, what's wrong with me that I'm having these thoughts? It's like, no, it's just normalizing. We're human beings and life can feel hard and life can feel painful. And we are here for a reason. And sometimes we don't even know what that reason is, but when you connect to your purpose, you start to feel clear and clearer. Like, I really was not connected to my purpose for a long time. I had an idea what my purpose was, but I didn't know it was this. Thank you so much for sharing this. You're welcome. Isabel says, I always refer myself to that quote from A Walk to Remember. God is like the wind. You can't see it, but you can feel it. And sometimes we can see faith, but we have to choose to also want to see. Yes, exactly, Isabel. That's spot on. Like, that's the thing is, I've heard, I have a client who does a lot of angel readings and like spiritual connection. And she always says, like, spiritual, our spirits and our guides and our angels, like, they are always trying to communicate to us. And they get so frustrated when they can't, because we're not open to it. So they're like knocking on the door and we're like, where are they? We miss them. And it's like, hello, I'm right here. And then we have to be open to that. And she talks about that all the time. Her name is Taylor Page. If you guys don't follow her already, she's a angelic intuitive and medium and astrologer. And she explains all this really beautifully of like, spirit is always there. We just literally have to be open to listening to it. So, yeah, I think that's all I have for you guys. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Do you guys have any questions, any thoughts, any feelings? We got through the 3 steps: tending to your heart, trusting the timing, tuning into a new way of connection, and just allowing everyone's unique experience to be their own, right? Like, I think that's really what was coming up today, was just a lot of fear around just like my own process, and being like, oh, this process looks a little bit different than past times that I've gone through this process, or maybe different than other people who are going through grief around this person. And I think it's also just a testament to how safe I feel to be with pain now, because, oh my God, when I lost people in the past, I would like try and shut my whole life down and like run and be like, go into crisis mode, because I was addicted to trauma. My nervous system, that's all it knew was trauma and drama and chaos. And now I'm just like, wow, I get to actually move through this by feeling safe to be with pain, feeling safe to be with sadness, feeling safe to be with the unknown, feeling safe to be with peace, feeling safe to be with acceptance and gratitude, like allowing more lightness into something that usually is a dark time. Like, that's everything. That's everything. And it doesn't mean that you bypass it. It means that you just be honest with how you actually feel. Like, if I actually wasn't okay, it would be very bypassy of me to be like, oh yeah, I'm just going to keep moving on, you know? No, that's why I took intentional time to really get still with myself of like, how am I? How am I actually feeling? And knowing that it's okay. It's all okay to feel exactly how you feel. Cara says, thank you so much for sharing the thought that came up for you, because sometimes I get these thoughts and think, do other people think these things through? Yeah, we can go to dark places. And this is the thing. Part of being on a soul journey is coming into relationship with darkness. It's not making darkness wrong, and it's not feeling afraid of darkness. It's actually And I have had some ego deaths around this because I always thought of myself as like, I have this zest for life. I'm, just like so full of life all the time. I'm high on life all the time. And while part of that is authentic, part of that was also a trauma response of like, that's how I was known. That was like this perception that people would have of me, is like, Rachel is like this zest for life kind of gal. And yes, part of that is true. Part of it is like, I went through a near-death experience as a child. I was given the second chance of life. And even last night, I had this moment of eating dinner and watching the sunset. And I was like, all of this almost didn't happen. And so it just helps me keep things in perspective. But that doesn't mean that I don't have pain. And so when I would just attach on to that zest of life, because it was when I would feel pain, it would be ego dystonic. It would be different from how I viewed myself. I was like, damn, I have not come into relationship with my darkness. And so these past 6 months have been like a deep, deep coming into relationship with my soul, like my deep soul, where I'm like, holy fuck, I've had existential crisis. I've had like, there have been many existential crises like, I wonder what this universe is. And like, why are we all here? In the past 6 months were the biggest existential crisis I've ever experienced. I was like, I don't even know if I want to be here. I don't even know. And not like I would ever actually take my own life. I would never do that. But just allowing myself to come into relationship with darkness of like, I was in deep suffering, deep fear, deep survival mode, deep, like, what the fuck is the point of all of this? Feeling so disconnected from the world, feeling so disconnected from my purpose in terms of like, okay, I'm working on this book, I'm working on these things, but like at the end of the day, what is it all for? Like, okay, so we heal and then we die and then we come back and then we learn and then we heal and then we die. Like, and I was really having to go through this existential crisis. And the reason why I was going through that is because I was fully shifting out of this old identity, this old version, this old way of relating through trauma, and stepping into this new version. And it felt terrifying. And so, of course, I felt disconnected from the world. I no longer relate to the world the same way I used to. I used to relate to the world from a place of all the shit that our world and our society bonds over, addiction, trauma, all of the things. Right. And so, it's just like when you start relating differently, and so many of my clients have been going through this. Oh man, there's so much cat hair. Sorry. I'm just like, oh, itchy. When so many of my clients have been going through this of like, I'm not where I was and I'm getting to know my authentic self for the first time. If you guys saw, I had told you that there was a new program I was doing called Authenticity Unleashed. I wrote out the modules for it. I was feeling so lit up by it. And something just kept telling me it's not time yet. And you know why it wasn't time? Because I had to go through my dark night of the soul to meet my actual authentic self. I had met glimpses of her, parts of her, but I had not met her fully. And I'm landing more and more on the other side of that, but it's not time yet because I'm still landing in what it means to actually meet your full authentic self, not the version of you formed through wounding and trauma in your inner child. And so I know that I'm meant to teach this program when I have more fully landed in it. And I can then teach you like, this is how you actually meet your authentic self. And part of that is going to be coming into relationship with darkness, with your soul's existential crisis, and allowing yourself to shift out of this old way of relating and feel scared that it can feel utterly terrifying when you can't relate the way everyone else is relating. And so there are moments where you think about death. There are moments where you think about, oh my God, like, I just want to be with my mom and my grandma again. But that's that terrified younger part of me reaching for mom. Whereas when I feel connected to myself, when I feel safe in my body, I don't feel that way. Do I miss my mom and my grandma every single day? Absolutely. Do I feel graspy for them? No. When I feel graspy for them, it's because I'm not feeling safe. And I'm not feeling safe because I'm feeling disconnected from the world, because I'm releasing all of the ways that I would use to relate and connect to the world. Everyone's posting about Love Island. I don't watch TV. I can't relate to that. I can't connect to that. Everyone's wanting to go on vacation and drink and eat crap food. I no longer do that. I can't relate to that. Everyone's talking about, they're stuck in their heads and stuck in their addictions, and I can now see it all because I used to be them. I used to be them, and now I'm no longer them. And that feels terrifying. It feels liberating because I no longer have to suffer that way, but it feels terrifying for my attachment because I'm an attachment-based creature. I'm a human. And so in order to meet your full authentic self, you have to allow yourself to release all of the known and step into the unknown. And that is what grief is. It's stepping into the unknown of what is life going to be like without this person? How am I going to feel in every single moment? And being with the unknown and trusting that in every moment, if there's sadness that comes up, if there's pain, if there's fear, if there's existential crisis, whatever it is, you are safe to be with it. And that is my biggest lesson of the past 6 months that I have more fully embodied, that like I knew this, but I wasn't fully embodying it. Healing is not about, oh, I'm never going to feel grief again. Oh, okay, my mom died, I grieved her, now I'm never going to feel it. No, that's not how it works. It's I am safe to be with whatever comes up in each present moment. It's not about feeling good all the time. It's not about feeling joy all the time. It's about feeling how you actually feel in every single moment. And when you feel it, you don't attach onto it and you don't get sucked into the rabbit hole of it. You feel it. And it wasn't until I found this work where I actually was able to grieve. I thought I grieved, but I really was just suffering. I wasn't actually feeling deep pain. My nervous system didn't feel safe to. I was just suffering. I was just attaching on. I was engaging in addictive behaviors. One of the first days after my mom passed, I took off work. My friend, one of my best friends, came to the house and she just got in bed with me and we just watched, I think it was the Kardashians. I think we just watched TV all day. That was not grief. That was avoiding pain. Grieving is not, oh, I'm just going to get in bed and avoid life and watch the Kardashians all day. That literally helps nothing. All it does is keep your pain in your body instead of out so that you just suffer. Now, if you need to crawl up in fetal position and bawl your eyes out and feel your heart breaking and shedding to pieces, that is okay. That is grief. That is pain. You will feel pain to the degree where you are on the floor and you can't even move. That is pain. But me getting in bed and watching TV all day, that was me avoiding my pain. Me drinking, what else did I do? Eat a lot, use my grief for an excuse to not take care of myself. That was not grief. That was an avoidance. Grief is actually feeling pain. Grief is actually feeling. Grief is not an avoidance of feeling. And so you have to look at, how am I actually grieving? Am I avoiding how I'm feeling and I'm just suffering? That's not actually grief. That means that there is a terrified younger part of you that does not feel safe to be with grief. Because grief it's a state, it's a state of all these different emotions that can show up. It's like an umbrella term for all the different underlying emotions. I love how I said like a million years ago, okay, I think that's all I have to say. And then of course I'm still talking like a million hours later. So I could talk about this topic forever. I've been through a lot of it, and it used to take me out. It used to terrify me. It used to make me really sad and depressed. It used to make me really anxious. It used to make me really anxiously attached. And now I just feel how I feel. Like healing is simplifying it all. That's what healing it is. That's what healing is. It's feeling safe to just be with what is, and without the protectors and the avoidance and the resistance and the addictive behaviors, life gets a lot simpler. What was your question, Cara? You said you just answered a question I had in sync. I love it. Yeah, it just becomes so much simpler. Like, who is this guy? Are you supporting Trump again? No, I do not support Trump. Question, something not related to grief. What are your views on religion traumas? I mean, yeah. Oh my God, that's like, I could do a whole other episode on that. That is a whole thing where people have experienced a lot of religious trauma and brainwashing. It's again a disconnection from authenticity. Yes, all of my lives are saved. So you can come back to this. It's also my podcast, and YouTube. You have 3 places to watch it. So yeah, that's a whole other topic, but it's really I was traumatized after the Star Wars sequel trilogy attempted to destroy my child. I'm not sure I'll ever recover from it. Okay, I hear you. So it's really looking at all of these things. What they have in common is it's a disconnection from your authenticity. And so you have, I'm just laughing because some of my ex-boyfriends just pop on my lives randomly and then they quickly leave. And I'm like, it's okay. You can learn from me. And the ex just popped on. He was someone that lost his dad. So like this would pertain to you. But the internet is a wild place. It's like, oh, hello, ex that I haven't talked to since college. I love it so much. It just brings together all the people. Um, I love when my exes learn from me. I'm like, I couldn't teach you this shit when I was dating you, but now I can. So yeah, religious. I won't go too far into that because again, I gotta hop off soon and eat and probably sleep, um, but religious trauma is real and it is looking at if you engage in religion, that's why I don't consider myself religious. I consider myself spiritual. When you're engaging in religion, you have to ask the question, is this bringing me home to my authentic self, or is this disconnecting me from my authentic self? It's really funny because sometimes people have judged my relationship with my mentor. They've judged this healing work. They've judged what I do for work. And some people call it like a cult, like this healing cult. And I'm like, you know what's so ironic about that? Is that there's so many religions that are actually cults. Like, what is a cult? It's where everyone has to think the same and be the same and do the same. Whereas the epitome of the healing work I do is helping you uncover what's authentic to you. So it's not supposed to look the same. So it's really funny because when we form communities, like I have a community, right? And my community has similar like this work resonates with them, and that's why I attract certain people into this community. And so when you have a common mission of like, let's heal the world, let's feel as good as we can feel, let's come home to our authentic selves, and then people see you have a common mission, they're like cults, and it's like, no, that's not what a cult is. And so yeah, Isabel saying they promote so much fear, it separates you from God. Right. So again, your authentic self doesn't live through fear. Your authentic self feels fear and chooses how to relate to fear. Whereas a lot of religions promote fear or promote discrimination, just like I'm seeing in a comment right now, which is very discriminatory. And so maybe you go to church because that's what they teach you in church. Now, I know there are exceptions. There are people I know go to church that are very inclusive, that they just feel a connection to God. And I think that's beautiful. But you just have to be mindful of when that is connecting you to your authentic self versus when it's connecting you from your, disconnecting you from your authentic self, which is living through fear, which is living through either or, which is living through discrimination, which we're having again in the comments of you're either male or female, very simple. That's actually not true. And so I would encourage you to get curious around where did you learn that? Where did you learn that? and what makes you qualified to say what's true for someone. My whole mission on this planet is to help you feel safe to be who you are. So whoever you are, doesn't really matter. We love to put people in boxes. You're female, you're gay, you're straight, you're male, you're Black, you're white, you're Jewish, you're non-Jewish. Like, we love to put labels. At the end of the day, we're just us. We're whoever we are. And so when we feel a need to box other people in, that's an avoidance of yourself. So I would encourage you to look at what are you avoiding in yourself that you feel the need to put other people in boxes? Like, how does that threaten you if someone else wants to express themselves in a certain way? It's all a sneaky avoidance of you. So yeah, really, I mean, there's so many people I know that have escaped. I mean, one of my mentors, Amanda Francis, she talks about leaving a religious cult. Another acquaintance, Nicole Mitchell, she talks about leaving religious purity culture, right? Like, again, it's not a one size fits all. There's plenty of, religious spaces that do cultivate authenticity, do cultivate connection. But you have to remember that God created us exactly as we are. So all these churches that are preaching about, God doesn't want you to be gay or transgender or whatever it is, it's like, well, God literally created you that way. So that argument doesn't even make sense. So you really have to look at, again, what brings me closer to my authentic self and what disconnects me from it. And that is all, I know that's off topic from grief. So I will start to wrap up, but you just want to use that for anything like that as your anchor, because that is the most important thing, is coming home to your actual authentic self. And part of that is being with your grief and actually allowing yourself to feel it. Let's see if there are any other comments I missed. You miss your grandpa too. Yeah, I get it. I miss my grandpa as well. It's not easy, but they are here with us and we just have to keep talking to them. That's what I would tell my grandpa when my grandma died. I'm like, keep talking to her. All right, anything else? That's what I believe too. God created us how we are supposed to be. Exactly. Like, all of this hate and this division that happens in our world, it's so idiotic, because if you actually have a relationship with God, you would understand we all come from God. So if you're hating on someone, you're hating on yourself, because it's like we're fragments. Like, God is the creator, right? And we are the creation. And so we're all little snowflakes. We're all little unique snowflakes. Boop, 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 boop. And then we come from this crater. And so it's like when it rains and raining different drops, but it all comes from the cloud that's raining. So we are the raindrops, or the snowflakes, as my mentor does. Doop, 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 right? And so then those raindrops are fighting each other and saying, well, God wants you to be this way, but you both just came from the same source. So you're both from God. So God doesn't want every snowflake or raindrop to be the same. It's like we all have our own unique fingerprints, our own little unique thing. But at the end of the day, we're all raindrops. We're all snowflakes. So it's like the argument doesn't even make rational sense. And that's why it drives me crazy, because I'm like, it's just an avoidance of you. It's like a mirror of you. And then you're hating on that mirror, you're hating on yourself. So I would encourage those who are listening, just to look at, when you judge someone else or you're, whatever it is, like, how is that mirroring back to you? Even if my human brain may not understand, I chose not to spread hate because God wants us to spread love. Exactly. Exactly. And when our human brains can't understand something, doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means we may not understand. And so you get to choose how to relate to that. Do I want to lean in with curiosity and learn? Or do I want to resist and avoid, which doesn't help anything? So you don't have to understand everything, but you have to choose how to respond to that, and you get to learn. I mean, when I was in grad school, I had my first year internship was working with an LGBT center. I would go around to schools and I would give trainings, because people don't understand what it means to be transgender or gender fluid or all these things, especially because church has wired a lot of false crap. And I would go in and I would teach the kids, I would teach the staff. The staff and the adults were the ones that really needed to learn. Some of them would be so open and some of them, they just couldn't wrap their heads around it. And I'm like, well, that's fine, but you still have to accept people for who they are, because that's literally the best way that you can respect God. God is like, oh, here are my two creations. One of you is good, but the other is bad. And now you have to fight each other. Like, no, that's literally so disrespectful to God. So if you actually believe in God, then that is a beautiful way that you can actually show that respect. So anyway, Isabel says, thank you. I'm hoping to work with you this year. I'm excited. Finances are getting better. Yes. That money is always flowing to you. Remember, money comes from God, not from the job, not from the paycheck, not from the client. God is your sugar daddy, as someone I saw online said that, and I was like, damn, that's true. God is your sugar daddy. God is your source for all the things you want. So when you feel safe to receive that, more flows. So keep leaning into the gratitude for what you have and just allowing that to grow and grow and grow. All right, my loves. So those are the 3 steps on grief, and then much else, because I'm a rambler and a talker. And I love all your questions so much. I never thought about doing like a episode on religious trauma, just because I haven't personally experienced religious trauma to an extent. Yeah, that hasn't been one of my woundings. But I do have a lot to say about it. So maybe I will do an episode on that. So thank you for the suggestion. All right, my loves, if you are grieving as well, allow it to be whatever it is meant to be for you. Know that you are safe for whatever comes up in each present moment, and honor your own unique experience without attaching on to what you think it should be or what it needs to be. And know that you are safe. You are safe to be with pain. You are safe to be with the unknown. You are safe to just tend to your heart. So tend to your heart, trust the timing, even when your human brain can't understand it, and tune into a new way of connection. And allow grief to be such a powerful expander of your relationship with spirituality, because that is what it has been for me. My relationship with spirituality has expanded beyond belief since losing people, because it's forced me to. I'm like, okay, I have 2 choices. Just think I'm never going to connect with them again, or I miss the shit out of them. I want to connect with them. I have to believe in something I can't see. And so allow it to be an expander for you. It just feels so much better that way. When we stop resisting, what we resist persists, right? So if we don't want it to persist, we have to accept. Thank you for sharing, and my heart is with you. Thank you, Cara. All right. I love you guys so much. Thank you for being here. And I will see you on the next episode. Bye.